All right, so in this video, we're going to be learning how to add some bells and whistles and also a lot of really useful and important built-in data sets to Tableau geospatial visualizations. So the only problem with this is right at the very beginning, there's this unfortunate part. I love Canvas Studio and all these recording features and stuff, but there's one part that I don't like. It's that I can't record on a Mac the top ribbon, so you're gonna have to follow along. In the very top, like on if you're in Windows or Mac, at the very top where it's file, data, worksheet, all this, there should be one called map. And in this, you should see one called map layers. So let's edit this one first. I'll go in here. Notice what we get. We get a new menu over here, and there's a whole bunch of stuff here. So we can turn all these things. Let's add, I don't know, let's add terrain. Notice we now have the mountains. And if I zoom in by scrolling, I can now see the Rocky Mountains around Colorado. I can see the Appalachian Mountains around West Virginia, and so on and so on. Remember, if we want to pan, we have to go back here and select pan from our menu. It's kind of a pain. So there's all sorts of other stuff. You can add water labels. You can just all these things. The metro areas, area code. Like a lot of these things are pre-built in, so that we don't have to worry about integrating commonly used data sets into Tableau. This is just not a problem. So these are all well and good. Fine, not a big deal. The place that this gets really interesting is when we start integrating data here. And so this is really nice. There's a lot here. And so for instance, we can go through and let's say, and you can see, let's just look at them. Population, households, occupations, housing, population by race. So these are all very common demographic things we might want to know about. Let's just do age. So this gives us a chloropleth, which we now know what that means. And again, we have our hierarchy, and it's going to, it should have broken it down by state on its own. That's right. You can break it down, but it's going to be the base. It's going to be the map underneath the data that you're presenting. So this is the important distinction. That you can say by county if you want, and it will do this. Your data is then displayed on top of this map. So there's a lot of data here, but you need to think carefully about how to integrate what you are trying to show. Like in our case, like we want to show, in this case, the COVID data, JHU COVID data one way or the other. This is, we need to think about how to do that. For instance, we can't have a chloropleth and another chloropleth, right? We can't have two, I always say chloropleth, it's choropleth. So we can't have two choropleths at the same time. We can have two colors on top of each other. So we have to use a geospatial scatter plot on top of this choropleth. So there's a lot of options here. I will leave it up to you to both explore these to see what's going on here and to figure out how you might use these in various applications. But there's so much stuff here that we really care about and would be very useful in providing context and making sure that we're not needlessly integrating data all the time. Like we don't have to kind of be putting this data in all the time. Notice that there's also all the comments. Let's get rid of, so to get rid of this, we have to go back to no base layer. There's a bunch of different styles that we can do. So there's all the kind of like modern viz stuff about this, but we could also do kind of a more street view like you would see on Google Maps or something like this. If you were gonna do, for instance, like a supply chain or kind of a distribution center thing where the locations of the roads are actually quite important. This is all built in for you. And then things like outdoors, if you wanted to do something where clearly, these, my family is all farmers and agronomists. So the fact that this is the Mississippi Delta and this is productive farmland, this is very important for those types of applications. And finally, you have like the classic, kind of Google Maps type thing. So the point being that when in doubt, unless you need these, you should keep it simpler. I mean, this is the classic rule of visualization, and don't include unnecessary detail. It just becomes chart junk. But there are plenty of specialized circumstances where you do need these additional, we call them layers, like these layers on the map, geospatial layers. And these aren't the end of it, right? That you may have to have custom geospatial layers, and we might talk about that in a future video, but other files that you need to bring in order to tell the story that you're trying to talk about. This is definitely more advanced, but something that certainly I've had to do in my research in communicating results to stakeholders and things like this. But a future video, so that one will have to wait for a little bit later.